For University of Phoenix cmgt 245 assignment week 2, Dr. Stephen Jones, due June 20th, 2016. The individual assignment is understand and support forensic investigations, creating a 5-minute audio podcast, tutorials explaining the importance of understanding and supporting forensic investigations. To understand digital forensic investigations, start with Lockhart's principle. The perpetrator of a crime will bring something into the crime and leave something with it. Pretty much this means anyone moving in or out trying to commit a crime is going to take something, obviously, because they're trying to commit the crime. But in turn will most likely always leave evidence at some point. Let's say an employee has accessed confidential customer information. First, you have to understand why it was done. Was it by accident? Are there just some kind of controls that can be put in place to prevent it? Or was the employee trying to be malicious and trying to steal some information to benefit from it? Digital forensics is basically the science of investigating computer-related security incidents. With that, kind of encompasses a lot of things. Again, with the malicious attacks, outside or internal, employees just trying to steal information, hackers on the outside trying to break in, steal whatever they can for competing companies. First up, we'll talk about the first responders. Just like any crime scene or accident on the highway or anything like that, the first responders are the first people on the scene to see what happened and assess what happened and start the process of gathering evidence and identifying everything that has happened. Normally these are highly trained computer techs that have been highly trained in computer forensics. Mostly they have to document all aspects of collection process. They need to establish a scene of investigation, not so much like a crime scene, just pretty much the area or systems that have been attacked need to be quarantined so there is no modification to the systems or the area. There is a process, and they do have priorities in place. Number one priority is human safety. If there was a fire, one of the servers goes up and you need to evacuate, make sure all humans are safely out of the building. With that, all said and done, the documentation and process to collect data and isolate the system. Then you isolate the data within. You want to always make sure not to make any changes so as to not increase any extra risk, and just make sure you can identify the compromise within the system. They always need to first make sure that it is some kind of a compromise. So all in all, first responders are the first people to see an attack, be aware of the attack, and start the process to quarantine any systems or areas that have been attacked, whether it be by accident or malicious, to basically establish the scene as to where the investigation will be held. Next up is, it goes into the handling of the evidence. Again, it goes to, professionals that have been trained to process and collect information. As it was actually kind of mentioned in the module, the old adage of bag it and tag it seems to go with everything. You always, you want to collect more than you need, just so you have everything covered. There is a process, again, with that, to understand the the volatility of information. So there's kind of a process that you have to go with that, where CPUs and RAM, where if power is taken away, then you lose all that information. You want to make sure you collect that the more volatile information first, before anything is lost in the investigation. You even close circuit TV videos, anything basically that is remotely close to the crime is what should be collected. As well as doing this, you need to use proper tools, as with any process, because if this does end up going into the court system, proper tools are going to help give you a legal leg to stand on, so to speak. Next would be the chain of custody, which again goes along with the process. I've noticed it's very structured in what needs to be done. So with the chain of custody, again, it's basically a witnessed, written record of all people who have interacted with evidence with unbroken control. Usually this follows the CIA of evidence, which is the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, to make sure everything is properly documented and stored and handled, so there is no compromise, which would then defeat the purpose of collecting the data, because once it hits the legal stage, it would not be able to be used. Tamper evident bags are used, so you can basically have an idea as to if the bag has been opened or not. And you also need to log transportation of said evidence, and who is transporting it. You always want to make sure you use authorized storage and authorized personnel to handle all this stuff, which then in turn goes to the preservation of the scene. It all comes down to the process. There is a process that needs to be followed, and it needs to be understood. You cannot rush it. Just like the analogy in the module, when there's a 3-lane highway and there's an accident in one of the lanes, you have to close off that lane and divert traffic. And as much as you would like it to just hurry up, there's a process that the officers need to go through to start collecting evidence, to understand what has happened, and to find a conclusion.